It was a normal Wednesday shift. Officer Diane Graves, 33 years old, signed off her radio and drove into the hills. She told dispatch she was going to check on a minor traffic report. She never came back. Her patrol car disappeared. No body, no badge, no tire tracks. It was like she had just vanished. Rumors exploded. Some said she ran away. Others thought someone in the department made her disappear. Her family refused to believe she'd walk away. For 12 years, nothing. Just silence. Then, a sudden landslide hit a quiet road during a storm, and rescue workers uncovered a crushed police cruiser buried under 12 feet of earth. What was inside the car left everyone speechless. And it raised one terrifying question. Was Diane alive when she was buried? It was March 12, 1980. Officer Diane Graves sat inside her white patrol car, parked just outside the small sheriff's station in Northern California. The sky was gray. Light rain tapped the windshield. Diane, 33 years old, was known for being calm, smart, and always on time. She adjusted the radio and spoke into the mic. "This is Unit 17, heading out to check on a stalled vehicle near Ridgeway Pass," she said. The dispatcher responded, "Copy that, Unit 17. Let us know when you make contact." Diane paused for a second before answering. Her voice was steady, but something about it felt off, like she wasn't fully okay. Then she added, "Shouldn't take long." That was the last time anyone heard from her. She put the car in gear and drove into the hills, her taillights fading in the mist. The rain grew stronger. But Diane never radioed back. No second call, no update. Just silence. By nightfall, her fellow officers realized something was wrong. Diane had vanished, and no one knew why. 2 hours passed. Then 3. Diane still hadn't checked in. Dispatch tried her radio once, twice, then again. No answer. At first, her team thought maybe the radio was down or she was busy. But Diane was known for following rules. She always checked in, always. The rain kept falling. Visibility was getting worse. And the road she mentioned, Ridgeway Pass, was winding and steep. Dangerous when wet. By 9 p.m., the mood in the station had shifted. Her team wasn't just worried. They were scared. Officers grabbed their gear. Flashlights, radios, raincoats. One deputy said, "She wouldn't just go quiet. Not Diane." And he was right. Something had gone wrong. The first search team left just before midnight. They drove slowly, scanning every turn on the wet mountain roads. Headlights cut through the fog. Flashlights flicked through the trees. Another team went on foot, climbing slippery trails and shouting Diane's name into the dark. "Diane! Officer Graves!" But the woods only answered with silence. They checked Ridgeway Pass. Nothing. No tire marks. No broken trees. No sign of a crash. It was like her car had vanished into the rain. By 3 a.m., more units joined. K9 dogs sniffed through thick brush. Helicopters weren't flying too stormy, but officers hoped daylight would bring something. They searched the nearby rivers, cliff edges, side roads. Nothing. Not a single piece of her car. Not a single clue. One deputy stood staring at the edge of a steep drop-off and said quietly, "She's gone." But no one knew how. There were no signs of struggle. No sound of gunfire. Just mud, mist, and darkness. Diane Graves had driven into the hills and disappeared. By the next day, rumors were everywhere. Some officers whispered that maybe Diane had run away. Maybe she snapped. Maybe she was tired of the job. Others believed something darker happened. Maybe she saw something she wasn't supposed to. Maybe someone didn't want her found. The sheriff called for calm, but tension filled the station. One deputy asked, "You think it was an accident?" Another shook his head. "No wreck. No signs." "That's not an accident. Diane's locker stayed untouched. Her uniform still hung inside. Her sister, Lisa, showed up demanding answers. She told everyone Diane wouldn't just leave. She didn't run. And deep down, a few officers believed her. Because Diane's voice on that last call? It wasn't just calm. It was worried. Like she knew something was waiting for her out there. Lisa Graves walked into the sheriff's station the morning after Diane disappeared. Her face was pale, her eyes swollen. She didn't ask questions. She made a statement. My sister didn't run, she said firmly. She's in trouble. You need to find her. Some officers nodded. Others avoided eye contact. Lisa looked through Diane's locker, her car logs, her notes. Nothing felt out of place, but that only made it worse. Diane was neat, organized. She hadn't packed. She hadn't planned to leave. Lisa asked to see the exact location where Diane was last tracked. When she learned the search didn't include a small side road Diane had written about in her journal, she got angry. You didn't even check where she was really going? She asked. The sheriff told her the team had done what they could. Lisa didn't buy it. That night, she sat alone in Diane's apartment, flipping through a photo album. She stopped at a picture of Diane in uniform, standing in front of her cruiser. Lisa whispered, I'll find you. From that moment on, Lisa wasn't just a grieving sister. She became the only person who believed Diane didn't vanish by chance. Weeks turned into months. No new leads, no sightings, no evidence. Search teams eventually stopped looking. The case went cold. Diane's name faded from the news, but not from the town. Locals began calling her the ghost cop. Kids whispered stories about her spirit watching over the mountain. Some said she drove her cruiser through the fog, warning lost hikers. Others said she never existed at all. Her photo stayed on the wall at the sheriff's station right beside a plaque that read, Missing in the line of duty. Officers passed it every day, but few spoke her name, except Lisa. Lisa kept pushing. She handed out flyers every year on the anniversary. She called reporters, investigators, even psychics. Most didn't listen. A few mocked her. But Lisa never stopped. In her heart, she didn't feel grief. She felt incomplete, like the story had been cut off halfway. One night, during a thunderstorm, Lisa drove up to Ridgeway Pass and sat for hours in the dark. She looked out over the steep slope and said softly, I know you're out here, somewhere beneath the dirt. The truth was waiting, and Lisa was going to dig until she found it. Within 24 hours of Diane's last radio call, the sheriff's office launched a full search. Helicopters flew over the hills. Deputies walked miles of muddy trails. Canine units sniffed through thick, wet brush. Everyone hoped to find tire tracks, a broken branch, anything. But there was nothing. It rained hard every night. Roads washed out. The wind knocked trees down. The forest swallowed everything. Still, the search teams didn't stop. They combed every canyon, creek, and ridge. Locals volunteered. Drones were used. Officers worked around the clock. But day after day, no car, no body, no radio, nothing. One deputy said, It's like she vanished into the dirt. The sheriff gave a press statement. We will not give up. Officer Graves is one of us. But behind the scenes, morale was slipping. The ground was too unstable. The weather too harsh. After 2 weeks, the official search was scaled back. Some believed she ran. Others thought she crashed into the hills. But one person didn't believe either of those things. Lisa Graves. Outside the sheriff's station, news vans lined the street. Reporters asked tough questions. Was Diane stressed? Was she hiding something? Some suggested she left on purpose. Missing posters were taped to every store window. Social media filled with messages. Come home, Diane. Candlelight vigils were held in front of City Hall. For a while, The town came together. But after a few weeks, the story stopped. Reporters packed up. Posters faded in the sun. People moved on. Diane's mom sat in silence most days. Her dad stared out the window for hours. But Lisa? She couldn't stop. She taped Diane's photo to her dashboard and drove those same hills every day. Looking, remembering. She told herself, if I can find one clue, just one, I'll figure this out. Lisa wasn't a cop. She had no badge, no authority. But she had something stronger, a reason. She printed maps, circled search zones, and studied her sister's patrol routes. Then she started making calls. She met with deputies one-on-one. Some were helpful. Some weren't. She asked the same question over and over. Where was Diane really going that night? One officer told her Diane had asked about a back road near Ridgeway Pass. But that road hadn't been searched fully. It was too dangerous during storms. Lisa went anyway. She wore boots, carried a flashlight, and took notes like a real investigator. At night, she reviewed Diane's old journals. She found an entry that read, something off about those lots near the pass. Might dig deeper. Lots? Lisa searched public records and found strange land sale documents. Names she didn't recognize. Prices that didn't make sense. That's when she realized Diane had been onto something. Lisa asked for a copy of Diane's dispatch logs. It took weeks to get them. When she finally sat down to read them, things didn't add up. There was a call marked at 7:46 p.m. Diane responding to a trespassing report, but no address was listed. No follow-up either. Strange. Another log said Diane checked in from Ridgeway Pass, but Lisa knew that area had bad radio signal. How could she check in from there? She pulled up GPS tower records. No ping, no signal. No way Diane made that call from the hills. Then came the strangest part. One report said, Officer Graves returned to base around 9 p.m. Lisa's hands started shaking, because Diane was never seen again after 7:50. Someone logged her back in, faked her return. Lisa highlighted the report in red marker, underlined the time twice. This wasn't a mistake. This was a cover-up. Lisa's eyes were burning from hours of combing through Diane's old notebooks and files. It was late, well past midnight, when she opened the last box under Diane's bed. Inside were old receipts, postcards, and a worn leather folder. Tucked deep in the back, she found something strange. A folded piece of graph paper, yellowed at the edges, with a hand-drawn map in red ink. Lisa unfolded it slowly. It wasn't labeled, but she recognized some landmarks: Ridgeway Pass, a creek near the county line, and an old ranger station. But there was one road she didn't recognize. A narrow path, curling through the hills like a scar, marked with 2 words, Check Gate. Lisa cross-referenced the area with the official search map. That road wasn't listed anywhere. She scanned Diane's journal again. One line stood out now. The gate's always open, but no one goes past it, not without reason. Lisa sat back, heart pounding. She whispered, You were following something. This wasn't just a casual sketch. It was a clue one Diane had hidden, away in case something went wrong. And something had. Now, Lisa knew exactly where she had to go. But someone else already knew too. The next morning, Lisa drove straight to the sheriff's office. She asked to speak with Lieutenant Mark Hanley, Diane's former supervisor and the man who assigned her patrol that night. He met her in the break room, coffee in hand. His eyes were tired. Maybe guilty. Lisa didn't waste time. Why wasn't the road near Ridgeway Pass searched? She asked. Hanley didn't answer at first. He stared into his cup, then finally said, It's unstable land. Slides happen there. All the time. Lisa nodded slowly, but Diane marked it in red ink. She knew something. Hanley shifted in his seat. Lisa, I know you're hurting, but that road doesn't lead to anything. Just dirt and rocks. She leaned in. Then why are you nervous? He looked up, his voice lower now. Some places don't need poking around. Sometimes it's better to leave things buried. Lisa froze. His words weren't advice. They were a warning. Hanley stood up, straightened his uniform, and added, "If you go up there, be careful. Road's unsafe." Lisa watched him walk out, heart pounding. Not from fear, but confirmation. Someone didn't want her on that road, which meant that's exactly where she needed to go next. As the years passed, people in the small town started talking. Some said Diane had snapped, that the stress of the job finally broke her, and she just drove off and disappeared. Others said the rainstorm had swallowed her car. Maybe it slid off a cliff. Maybe the mud buried it deep. Nature had taken her, and no one would ever find her again. But then, other whispers started. They said Diane didn't vanish. She was silenced at the diner. People talked in low voices. One man said he saw Diane arguing with a deputy 2 days before she vanished. A woman said she remembered Diane looking over blueprints at the library. And then there were the files. A few folks believed Diane had found something she wasn't supposed to, something big, something dangerous. The word cover-up started floating around. Her case became one of those small-town mysteries. No answers, no closure, just questions and fear. Lisa kept searching. She posted online. She followed every rumor. Most led nowhere. But one day, she got a message. It said, "You're asking the right questions. Keep going." Lisa drove 2 hours to meet a retired deputy named Harold Cole. He'd worked with Diane for 6 years before he suddenly quit. They met at a quiet fishing dock. He didn't want to talk in public. Harold lit a cigarette with shaking hands. "Your sister was smart," he said. "Too smart." Lisa leaned forward. What was she looking into? Harold hesitated, then said, "Land transfers. Some were fake. Some done in secret. Money changing hands. Big money. Some of the names on those papers? Deputies. County officials. Even a judge." Lisa's heart dropped. "And Diane knew?" He nodded. "She came to me. Asked questions. Wanted to go to internal affairs." "Did she?" "She didn't get the chance." There was silence. Then Harold looked her in the eye. "I told her to stop, to leave it alone, but she kept pushing." Lisa whispered, "So what happened?" Harold shook his head. "I don't know. But I do know this. If she vanished near Ridgeway Pass, it wasn't the weather." Before she left, Harold handed her a flash drive. "It's not everything, but it's a start." That night, Lisa was home alone. She was uploading the flash drive contents to her laptop when her phone rang. Unknown number. No caller ID. She answered. The voice was low. Calm. "Male. You need to let this go," he said. Lisa froze. "Who is this?" "You're playing with fire. Let the past stay buried." Then the call ended. Lisa sat there, phone still in her hand, heart pounding. She checked her windows. All locked. She looked outside. No one. This was the first time anyone had directly threatened her. She called the police, but they said there was nothing they could do without proof. Lisa didn't sleep that night. The next morning, she bought a camera system and installed it around her house. She knew one thing now: someone was watching. And whoever they were, they wanted her quiet. 3 days later, Lisa opened her mailbox and found an envelope. No stamp. No return address. Just her name, written in shaky black ink. Inside was a single piece of paper. It said, "Look beneath the earth." She didn't leave. She was buried. That was it. No signature. No other clues. Lisa felt her stomach twist. She showed the letter to police. They ran it for prints. Nothing. They checked nearby cameras. Nothing. It was as if the note had just appeared. Lisa spent the whole night reading it over and over. Buried? She looked back at Diane's old hand-drawn map, at the narrow road, at the mark near the creek with the words, "Check gate." Then she remembered something else. On one of the land documents Diane had highlighted, there was a line that read, "Soil removal approved, pending inspection." Lisa pulled it out. The date on the form? 2 days after Diane vanished. That wasn't a coincidence. Someone had moved dirt, and they'd covered their tracks. But now? Now Lisa knew where to dig. Lisa didn't stop. The rejection from police only made her more determined. She posted photos of the tire tracks and damaged brush online, asking for help. Most responses were dead ends, but one message stood out. It came from a man named Frank Maddox, 67 years old, former mechanic, lived alone on the outskirts of town, near the old Ridge Road. His message was short. "I saw something." "That? Mate, come along." Lisa drove out the next morning. His property was old and overgrown, with a rusted barn at the back. Frank met her at the gate. He didn't smile, just motioned for her to follow. Inside the barn, the air smelled of dust and oil. Frank pulled out a folded tarp. Beneath it was a cracked metal toolbox filled with old notebooks, receipts, and a pair of binoculars. "I was watching deer that night," he said. "Had the binoculars out. Heard a car coming up the Ridge Road. Late, around midnight." Lisa held her breath. "It was a squad car," Frank continued. "Stopped near the old gate. Headlights cut. 2 men got out. One was wearing a uniform." Lisa whispered, "Diane?" Frank shook his head. "Didn't see her, but I heard yelling, like someone arguing. Then a third person screaming." Lisa's hands trembled. "What happened next?" Frank looked down. "Loud bang, then nothing. Car drove off without lights." Lisa asked why he never came forward. Frank's voice was flat. "Because the next day, someone left a bullet in my mailbox." He handed Lisa an old receipt with a hand-drawn license plate number. Didn't get the full thing, but part of it. Lisa stared at the paper, heart racing. This wasn't just a hunch anymore. Someone had seen it happen. Someone knew Diane didn't. Vanished she was taken. Frank looked at her with tired eyes. "Whatever your sister found," he said, "it scared powerful people. Be careful." Lisa nodded. She'd come too far to turn back now, and she finally had something real. A partial plate number. A location. A witness. Pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, but she didn't know it yet. Someone else was watching again, and this time, they were closer than she thought. 12 years passed. By 1992, most people had stopped talking about Diane Graves. Her case was cold. Her name rarely came up anymore. The sheriff's office had new staff, new cases. Diane's photo still hung in the hallway, but it had started to fade. People said she probably left on her own. Some believed she got lost in the mountains. Others didn't care anymore. But Lisa never stopped caring. Every month, she returned to the ridge. She brought fresh flowers. She stood on the same hill where Diane's signal was last traced. She didn't say much. Just looked. Sometimes she walked the trails again, alone, searching. Her friends begged her to let go, but she couldn't. Something inside her still whispered. Diane didn't leave. Diane didn't run. She kept Diane's jacket in her closet. The same jacket Diane wore the week she vanished. It still smelled like her. Lisa even kept the old map, the one Diane had marked before she disappeared. It was more than a memory now. It was a mission. And even after 12 long years, she refused to believe it was over. Then, one day, the sky changed. And everything Lisa believed was finally proven right. It started as heavy rain. But by nightfall, it turned into something worse. a brutal thunderstorm slammed into the mountains. The winds howled. Rain hit the roads like hammers. Power lines snapped. Trees bent and broke. On the scanner, emergency calls lit up non-stop flooded roads. Blocked highways, stranded families dot the ground, soaked for days. Couldn't hold any longer. Then the hills started to move. Mud poured down like rivers. Rocks and broken branches tumbled onto roads. Small landslides hit rural backroads, especially near the old ridge. In one spot, a hillside simply gave way. A giant wall of earth collapsed, burying part of the road below. County workers were pulled from their normal routes and sent to clear blocked areas. Road graders and bulldozers pushed through layers of dirt and debris, trying to make paths safe again. One team, assigned to a forgotten side road near the ridge, worked late into the night. The mud was thick. The hillside had fallen hard. But as they scraped and shoveled, one of them stopped. His light had caught something strange in the dirt. Something shiny. Something not natural. The man waved over the others. They pulled back more debris. And that's when they saw it. Sticking out from the mud was a thin strip of white metal. At first, the workers thought it was scrap. Maybe an old fence or tool. But when they cleared more of the hill, they saw the curve of a window frame, then a side mirror, then a crushed door. One man stepped back, stunned. He recognized the shape. "It's a car," he said. They radioed it in. Deputies and rescue crews rushed to the scene, their trucks struggling through the slick roads. Flashlights lit up the area as more dirt was pulled away. The vehicle was old, rusted, smashed under years of weight. But the color was clear, white. One firefighter brushed the mud off a number on the door. Silence fell. It was a badge number. D-341. A deputy whispered, "That's a patrol unit." Someone else said it louder. "Diane Graves." Every face turned pale. They weren't looking at scrap. They were looking at the final clue in a case that had haunted the town for over a decade. Word spread fast. By morning, news vans were on site. And Lisa was already on her way. She knew what they had found, and she was terrified of what they'd find next. They brought in bigger machines to dig. The hillside had swallowed the car completely. Only the roof and part of the door had been exposed. Now, bit by bit, the entire frame came into view. It was Diane's patrol cruiser. Crushed, twisted, buried under 12 feet of earth. But there was no mistake. It was hers. The badge number, the unit code. Even the faded county seal still clung to the back fender. The windshield had shattered inward. Both front tires were snapped sideways, and inside, something was still in the driver's seat. Rescue workers froze. No. One spoke for several seconds. Then they slowly opened the mangled door. Inside, wrapped in what was left of a police jacket, were human remains. The coroner would later confirm. A female, early 30s, consistent with Diane's build. Her ID badge was still in the glove box. Her radio broken, but still there, was found jammed under the seat. Lisa arrived just as the remains were being carried out. She didn't scream. She didn't faint. She just stood still, staring. 12 years of pain. 12 years of waiting. Now, the truth was rising from the dirt, and it was only the beginning. Because what buried Diane wasn't just a landslide. Rescue crews cleared the last layers of mud, then paused. The car was too unstable to move, so they opened it where it sat. The inside was dark, wet, rotting. The seatbelt was still buckled. The fabric of Diane's patrol uniform, faded and falling apart, was caught in the seat frame. The steering wheel was bent. One boot was jammed beneath the pedals. Her cracked police radio lay across the passenger seat. Mud had leaked in through every crack, but something else caught everyone's eye. The driver's side window had been rolled up, mostly intact. Just spiderwebbed with cracks and on the inside of that glass. There were fingerprints, 5 of them. Pressed hard, they dragged downward. Across the fogged glass claw marks. Someone inside that car had tried to get out. One of the forensic techs froze. Staring at them, he whispered, "She was alive." Nobody spoke. They checked again. The prints were on the inside clear as day. Not smudges. Not dust. Actual, desperate fingerprints. The idea hit like thunder. Diane didn't die in a crash. She didn't pass instantly. She might have woken up. Trapped. Alone. No way out. No radio. No sound. Just 12 feet of dirt above her. And no one coming. The news spread within hours. TV crews swarmed the site. Reporters begged for answers. The sheriff's office was quiet. No one knew what to say, but the town couldn't stop asking the one question no one could answer. Was she still alive when the dirt came down? Experts from the state crime lab were flown in. They studied the glass, the seatbelt tension, the position of the body, but there were no clear signs of injury from the crash itself. The medical examiner couldn't determine the exact time of death. Maybe she hit her head and never woke up, or maybe she woke up hours later. Maybe days. Trapped. Injured. Waiting. Lisa couldn't sleep. She replayed everything. Every fight with the police. Every clue. Every time she was told to stop searching. If they had looked harder. If they had just followed the map. Could Diane have been saved? No one had answers. But those prints on the window haunted everyone who saw them. A silent scream. A final message. Now, 12 years later. The truth had surfaced, but it brought more pain than peace. And it wasn't over yet, because what happened next would shake the whole department to its core. The rescue team carefully pulled out what was left inside the crushed patrol car. At first, it looked like nothing more than pieces of metal, mud, and torn fabric, but then bones. They found part of a skull wedged beneath the dashboard, vertebrae near the collapsed steering wheel, a pelvis half buried in the seat cushion. A full skeleton was slowly recovered. The remains were fragile, but mostly intact. Forensic techs worked quietly, collecting each piece and placing them into evidence bags. Everyone already knew whose car it was, but they had to be sure. The bones were rushed to the state lab. A forensic dentist matched the teeth to old X-rays on file from the sheriff's office. The result came back within 48 hours. It was Diane Graves. 12 years missing. 12 years of searching, begging, fighting for answers. Now, finally, her body had been found. Lisa stood in the rain outside the coroner's office when she got the call. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. She just whispered one thing. I knew it. I knew she never ran. But that was only the beginning, because what they learned next was far worse than anyone expected. The forensic team didn't just look at the bones. They studied everything. Every crack, every break. And the results were shocking. Diane's arms showed signs of trauma. There were bruises around her elbows and wrists. Her fingers had tiny fractures. Her fingernails were broken, several torn off completely. It looked like she had been clawing at something. The seatbelt? It wasn't fastened, and that didn't make sense. Everyone knew Diane always buckled up. It was department policy. She trained other officers to do the same. So why was the belt loose? And why were there scratch marks on the roof of the car? Forensics believed it meant one thing. Diane had woken up inside the buried car. She had tried to escape. She had fought hard. And there was more. Mud had filled her lungs. Dirt was in her throat. Even after all those years, the signs were clear. She didn't die from the crash. She died trying to survive it. Lisa read the early findings and went silent. Her gut had always told her something was wrong. Now, she had proof. But What the autopsy confirmed next left the whole town in shock. The final autopsy report gave a clear answer. Cause of death: asphyxiation. Due to compression and entrapment. In plain words, Diane suffocated. She didn't die on impact. There were no signs of a head injury, no major bone fractures from a crash. She had been alive after the car was buried. Maybe for hours, maybe longer. Stuck alone in total darkness. With no way to call for help. No one knew exactly how long she lasted, but the experts agreed Diane had a slow death, and she knew it was coming. Lisa read the report again and again. One sentence stuck with her: she died attempting self-rescue. That meant Diane had hope. Even in her last moments, she didn't give up. But no one came, and that truth hurt more than anything else. Lisa had waited 12 years for answers, but nothing could prepare her for the truth. She locked herself in her room and cried for hours. Diane hadn't just vanished. She had suffered. Alone, scared, fighting for her life. Lisa had begged the police to search that area years ago. She had shown them the old map, the tire tracks, the clues, but no one listened. Now she knew what those missed chances really meant. They weren't just delays. They were the reason Diane never made it out. Lisa sat on the floor, holding the autopsy report in her hands. The words blurred through her tears. She didn't care about justice in that moment. She just wanted her sister back. But she knew one thing: this wasn't over. Not yet. Someone had to answer for what happened, because Diane wasn't just buried under mud. She was buried by the people who ignored her. Once the wreck was pulled from the dirt, forensic vehicle inspectors went to work. Even though time and mud had corroded much of the exterior, key components inside the vehicle were preserved enough for testing. First, they examined the brakes. No signs of failure. Brake lines intact. Pads worn evenly. Next, the tires still partially inflated when recovered. No blowouts. No punctures. The steering column wasn't jammed. The accelerator cable wasn't snapped. There were no signs of a collision with another vehicle or a slide-off. And the most damning detail? There were no skid marks on the road above where the car had gone missing, which meant Diane didn't slam the brakes. She didn't lose control. She didn't veer off the road in panic. Investigators were stunned. A crash had always been the theory, but now, for the first time, it was official. The car didn't fail. There was no mechanical malfunction, no weather event, no animal in the road. This wasn't an accident. Someone or something put Diane Graves' vehicle down in that gully and buried it. Lisa felt her stomach drop. Her worst fear wasn't just a theory anymore. Something deliberate happened out there, and it started long before that final drive. Lisa returned to the place where Diane's car had been found, but this time, she wasn't there to grieve. She was investigating. The location sat along an old service road, one that had long been decommissioned by the city. Overgrown, mostly erased from modern maps. But in the 80s and 90s, it was known by another name, Dead Mile. Locals whispered stories about that stretch of land. Illegal dumping sites. Stolen goods stashed in the brush. And once a body found, wrapped in chains. Lisa dug in the city records, scouring old zoning maps, public complaints, even handwritten land reports. One thing kept showing up: property disputes. Several acres near the ridge had changed hands in quiet, undocumented deals. No press coverage, no paper trail. And who handled those land transfers? Retired officers. The same ones Diane had questioned months before she vanished. Lisa's hand shook as she pieced it together. Diane wasn't just digging into petty theft or bad paperwork. She was circling something bigger. A ring of corruption that went beyond a few bad cops. The burial site wasn't random. It was convenient, known, safe from witnesses. Diane's grave had been chosen carefully by people who thought no one would ever find it. They were wrong. Lisa stared at the map on her kitchen table. Red pins, yellow highlights, old photos. Diane's case files. It all pointed to one thing. This wasn't it's more than a freak accident. This wasn't just about a missing cop. This was a message. Diane was silenced, taken off the board before she could talk. Not by a stranger, not by a drifter, but by someone she worked with, trusted, a fellow officer, a friend, buried not just in mud, but in lies, in cover-ups, in brotherhoods sworn to protect their own. Lisa now knew the truth. Diane didn't die by mistake. She was executed. Quietly by the badge. Lisa didn't sleep for days after the wreck was pulled from the hillside. The crushed cruiser, the fingerprints on the window, the working brakes. It was clear. Diane didn't crash. Someone wanted her gone. So Lisa gathered everything, photos, documents, autopsy results, and drove straight to internal affairs. She didn't ask politely. She demanded action. This wasn't an accident, she told them. You buried her. Now dig her case back up. At first, the officials pushed back. But once they saw the fingerprint photos and the results from the brake inspection, the tone changed. One investigator leaned back in his chair, pale. You're saying she was buried alive? I'm saying you need to find out who did it, Lisa snapped. 3 days later, the department made it official. After 12 years, the Diane Graves case was reopened. It was no longer marked as accidental disappearance. It was now a criminal investigation. Detectives started knocking on old doors. They pulled retirement files, reopened logs, dug through Diane's last few reports, and while they were just getting started, Lisa got a phone call from someone who had been there the night it all happened, someone who was finally ready to talk. The voice on the phone was shaky, older, tired. It belonged to Tom Jensen, a former sheriff's deputy who had retired early, just 1 year after Diane disappeared. He told Lisa he couldn't sleep anymore, couldn't keep it inside. He said, I know what happened to your sister. Lisa froze. Tom asked to meet in person, somewhere quiet. No recordings. They sat on a park bench just outside town. He looked down the whole time, never once made eye contact. Then he started talking. He said Diane had found something big, something dangerous. She was digging into a land project near the Ridge Forest land that was supposed to be protected. But some officers, along with city officials, were selling off pieces of that land to private companies, secretly, illegally. Diane had found the paperwork, and she was about to report it. Tom said she warned one of the officers that she was going to blow the whistle. That officer wasn't happy. Within days, Diane was gone. Tom wasn't part of the plan, but he knew who was. And for 12 years, he stayed silent. Now he wanted Lisa to know the truth, even if it meant losing everything. Tom kept talking, and the story only got worse. He said it happened late around midnight. Diane had finished her shift. She was heading home, driving along a quiet back road through the hills. That's when a second patrol car started following her. Inside were 2 officers. Diane had been investigating. They flashed their lights. Diane slowed down, thinking they needed help, but they weren't there to talk. They pulled up beside her, forced her toward the edge of the road. Diane tried to get away, but they boxed her in. Then, with one quick swerve, they pushed her cruiser toward the slope. The ground dropped sharply. Her car slid off the edge. It hit a patch of soft dirt and rolled halfway down the hill. Tom said the officers climbed down after her. She was still breathing, knocked out, bleeding but alive. They didn't call for help. They didn't try to pull her out. Instead, they walked back up the hill, got in their car, and drove away. They didn't hide the vehicle. They didn't need to. They knew the land better than anyone. They picked that road for a reason, because they were counting on nature to finish the job. Tom said he heard the words the next day at the station. One of the officers leaned over and whispered, "Let the rain bury her." Lisa didn't understand. What does that mean? Tom explained. That road had been unstable for years. They all knew it. One hard rain, and the hillside would collapse. It had happened before. Mudslides, debris falls, entire sections of road wiped out. They didn't need to cover up the crime. The weather would do it for them, and that's exactly what happened. Storm rolled in the next week. The hill gave way, and Diane's car disappeared beneath 12 feet of earth. No one asked questions. No one looked, because in their eyes, the problem was gone. But they were wrong. Lisa wasn't going away, and now, for the first time in 12 years, the truth was finally breaking through the dirt. Just like that rusted patrol car. Buried, but not forgotten. Lisa sat on the courthouse steps, shaking in her hands a folder of notes, maps, and the signed statement from Tom Jensen. The truth was out. Now, she had to make it public. She stepped up to the podium as reporters gathered local, regional, even national crews. Cameras clicked. Microphone shoved toward her. She took a breath and began. My sister, Officer Diane Graves, did not die. In an accident, she was murdered. And I have the name of the man who helped cover it up. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Lisa laid it all out. The corrupt land deals, the night of the crash, the deliberate silence. She read Jensen's statement. Aloud, her voice shaking with fury. I want justice, she said, her eyes burning. And I will not stop until every person involved is held accountable. Within hours, the press flooded the sheriff's office. Protests broke out in front of the department. People held signs. Justice for Diane, corruption ends now, clean. Badge. The town erupted. The department scrambled. Reporters chased former deputies through grocery store parking lots. Angry citizens stood outside the courthouse every night. This wasn't just about Diane anymore. It was about the entire system. And it was cracking. The first arrest came quietly. Deputy Harold Munn, the officer named by Tom Jensen, was taken into custody after a brief chase through a neighboring county. He didn't speak a word. Didn't request a lawyer. The second suspect, former officer Glenn Tully, vanished 2 days before his warrant was issued. Authorities believe he fled the state using a false ID. Meanwhile, Sheriff Ray Colton, who'd served during Diane's disappearance, resigned under public pressure. He gave no speech. No apology. Just a one-line statement. I am stepping away for the good of the department. But it was too late. 4 more resignations followed in the next week. Old secrets surfaced: unreported misconduct, bribery accusations, falsified reports. 1. A retired captain was found to have purchased land connected to the cover up. The department wasn't just shaken. It was collapsing from within. What started as one woman's demand for truth had turned into a reckoning. 12 years after she disappeared, Diane Graves was finally given what she deserved: the truth. Her file was changed from missing to killed in the line of duty. Her badge was returned to her family. A plaque was hung in the precinct lobby. Officer Diane Graves. Honesty never dies. Lisa stood in front of it one morning, tears in her eyes. For years, people whispered that Diane had snapped, abandoned her post, run away from something. But now, the world knew the truth. She didn't run. She didn't crash. She stood up, and they tried to bury her. But she rose. 12 years after she vanished, Officer Diane Graves was finally laid to rest. The funeral was held on a quiet, sunny morning. Police cars lined the streets for blocks. Hundreds of people came: officers from other towns, news crews, locals who remembered her, and those who never met her but followed her story. The flag on the courthouse flew at half-mast. Her casket was draped in the American flag. 6 officers carried it slowly while bagpipes played in the distance. The crowd stood still. Lisa walked beside the casket, holding Diane's badge in her hands. She didn't cry. She just looked straight ahead, at the gravesite. The sheriff spoke. This time, it wasn't full of excuses or fake words. He said, "Diane, Graves died fighting for what was right. We failed her, but we will not forget her." Then came the final salute. A group of officers raised their rifles. Bang, bang, bang. 3 shots into the sky. Diane's coffin was lowered into the earth. Lisa knelt beside it and whispered, "You're home now." And just like that, the long nightmare ended, not with silence, but with honor. 1 week later, a new plaque was installed inside the sheriff's office. It was mounted on the wall of honor, where fallen officers were remembered. The plaque had Diane's name, her photo, her badge number. And underneath, just one line. She never ran. She was taken, and she fought. Officers gathered around it. Some stood with hands on their hearts. Some wiped away tears. One younger deputy, who had just joined the force, whispered, "I grew up hearing ghost stories about her. I never thought they were real." Now, everyone knew the truth. She wasn't a ghost. She was a hero. Lisa didn't disappear after the funeral. She couldn't. Instead, she started a foundation, the Diane Graves Project, to help families of missing law enforcement officers. She gave talks. She showed people Diane's photos. She shared the long road of searching, the lies, the dead ends. And the moment the truth finally broke free, Lisa told the world, "The worst thing you can do is give up. The second worst? Stay quiet." The foundation helped families fund private searches. It helped train officers on how to spot cover-ups. It taught others how to fight back when systems fail. Lisa became known as a fighter, just like Diane. But to her, this wasn't about fame or awards. It was about giving people what? Diane never got justice without a 12-year wait. Lisa once said, in an interview, "If I can stop even one case from going cold, my sister didn't die for nothing." And she meant every word. The story didn't stop in their small town. National news picked it up. Every major network covered it. Netflix reached out. They made a documentary called Buried Truth. The Diane Graves story. It hit the top 10 in just days. People around the world watched the story unfold. Diane's bravery, Lisa's fight, the lies, the storm, the discovery, the reckoning. Hashtags started trending. Hashtag justice for Diane. Hashtag she fought back. Hashtag buried but not gone. Other families came forward with similar stories. New investigations were opened in other towns. Diane became a symbol not of mystery, but of what happens when truth finally rises. And in every photo, every interview, every news segment, one face always showed up. Lisa. Because this story wasn't just about one lost officer. It was about a sister who refused to let her be forgotten. The rain hadn't just soaked the hills or flooded the roads. It had torn something wide open. Lisa often thought about that storm, how something so violent, so unexpected, could bring peace. If it hadn't been for that landslide, Diane's car would still be buried. The fingerprints on the window would still be hidden. The lies would still be protected. But nature had done what? People refused to. It forced the truth to the surface. The mudslide didn't just reveal a wreck. It exposed a cover-up, shook a town awake, and brought a sister home. Every time it rains. Now, Lisa doesn't hide indoors. She watches. She listens. And sometimes, when the thunder rolls and the skies break open, she smiles through her tears. Because she knows this isn't just weather. This is memory. And it's not letting go. 12 years of digging, searching, begging, breaking. It all led here. Lisa stood by Diane's grave again. But this time, she brought no papers. No camera crew. No press. Just silence. She knelt down and ran her fingers across the polished stone. "Hey," she whispered. "They know now. You can rest." Birds chirped somewhere behind her. A breeze tugged at her coat. She felt something lift inside her. Not happiness. Not relief. Stillness. Lisa didn't feel like she had to fight anymore. She placed a folded photo at the base of the headstone. Diane in uniform, laughing, alive. She stood up, wiped her eyes, and looked out at the world. The battle was over. The lies were broken, and Diane, her sister, her hero, was no longer a missing person. She was a name, a story, a truth. And finally, she was at peace. So was Lisa.